Hello and welcome to Who's the Bossk? It's a Star Wars podcast from laughingplace.com. My name is Mike Celestino. I am your host. I am the lead Southern California reporter and editorial director for Star Wars content at Laughing Place. This is episode number 195 of Who's the Bossk, and we will be discussing the latest episode of The Acolyte, Star Wars The Acolyte, episode 4, which just came out on Disney Plus a couple days ago. And for that conversation, I have invited back on the show my friend and fellow Laughing Place contributor, Bekah Burbank. Bekah, how are you? Thank you for coming back on Who's the Bossk?
Hi, Mike. I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having me back. This is always enjoyable.
I'm so glad that you could come back on the show. Let's talk a little bit about what's been going on with you. I don't know if you want to talk about how your role has been kind of reduced at Laughing Place and what you are still doing over there.
Yeah, no, I got a real world job. Shocker. Yeah. After 6 years of Laughing Place, I got a real world job, but I'm still contributing, not quite daily, but definitely each week. I'm still doing Barely Necessities. So if you want to talk Disney merchandise, we're always happy to do that. But yeah, I'm still doing that and still helping with some of the site management. But yep, different perspective, different change. It's all good.
Yeah, cool. I'm glad that you seem happy with the new gig. What has been on Barely Necessities, which is our Laughing Place's kind of Disney merchandise live show here on the Laughing Place YouTube channel, what have been some recent products that have stood out to you?
Well, Disney's been doing this Stitch Attacks Snacks collection. So each month, Stitch and his pal Angel are enjoying different types of Disney snacks in the form of plush and then a pin set. So that's been pretty cool. But yeah, other than that, there's a new Vera Bradley, and Vera Bradley can be kind of hit or miss for me, but this is a Cinderella Vera Bradley. It's pretty nice collection.
Oh, cool. Yeah, with the Stitch thing, next Wednesday is June 26th.
Yes.
Which is, I guess it's Stitch Day, because of the number 626 in the movie. Is he like Experiment 626?
That's correct.
Yeah. I haven't seen it in a long time, but the trivia night that we go to every Wednesday night, next week they're calling it Stitch Night, and we have to wear, I don't know, whatever Stitch related clothing we have. But the funny thing is my wife Tori just hates Stitch.
Oh no.
Like diametrically opposed to Stitch as a character, so we don't really have anything. I think I have the Stitch Lego minifigure only. That's like the only piece of Stitch merch in my apartment, so I may have to bring that with me, but otherwise we are ill prepared for Stitch Day. When does Barely Necessities happen on Laughing Place?
It's every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific on YouTube, and then of course I think a couple of the other streaming locations. You can find us on Facebook and on X as well.
And Kyle, your husband, has chimed in with, I assume most clothing has Stitch as. So yes, we will wear clothes to the trivia night. It will have Stitches in the clothing. There we go. Let's do the 5 Star Wars questions. I believe, if I did my math right, this is your 4th appearance on the show. I hope I'm right about that. And that means you're up to the 5 Star Wars questions, level 4. Are you ready for this, Bekah?
I'm ready.
Okay, great. Number 1, what is your favorite Star Wars weapon? Do you have a favorite Star Wars weapon? If you are selecting a lightsaber or blaster, which seems likely, please be specific as to its owner or its model. What do you think, Bekah? Favorite Star Wars weapon?
Well, okay, so I'm going to list 2 here. One is the 10-loss disruptor rifle that we've seen in the Jedi Outcast and Academy games, mostly because it was so funny to use the scope, zoom in on a faraway enemy, fully charge the thing, and then just smoke them. So nice. I've always enjoyed that. But real answer is is probably Obi-Wan's lightsaber. I love the lightsaber as a weapon. It's elegant, right?
Yeah.
It's so cool. I like the sound. I like the colors. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Obi-Wan's weapon.
Very cool. I love the more specific you get, I love it. So the one you listed from that video game, I hadn't even heard of that before because I didn't play that game. But
I had to look it up to make sure. I didn't have it off the top of my head.
Sweet. Number 2. So the rest of these questions, I have to warn you, are kind of outside the box of Star Wars. This is the 4th level. I tried to get a little bit outside of Star Wars specifically, but tangentially related. So number 2, which Star Wars actor has had your favorite career outside of Star Wars?
Yeah, this is a great question. I was trying to think of the entire, like, all of the movies and all the media I've consumed, but I'm gonna keep it really simple. I like Ewan McGregor. So I don't know that Obi-Wan is my favorite character, but Ewan McGregor, he's been in A Life Less Ordinary, Down with Love, Big Fish, Moulin Rouge, all these movies that I love. Anytime he's in something, I'm like, I have to see that. Have I seen everything? No, but the stuff I have seen, I really, really love. So
How about Train Spotting? Did you like that one?
I have not seen that one. I know that's like the movie to see, right? That's kind of what launched his career.
Yeah. And they recently did a sequel, like a legacy sequel to Train Spotting also, which is crazy. Yeah, Ewan, great, wonderful actor, super charming, of course, wonderful choice there. Number 3 is the same question with director instead of actor. So which Star Wars director has had your favorite career outside of Star Wars?
There's too many of them, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
anyone from the movies or TV?
yeah, I was trying to decide on this too. I think I'm gonna go with Ron Howard. I like Ron
Okay.
Howard. Again, I've not seen a lot of his catalog, but I know he's produced things, he's directed things, movies that I've enjoyed, like Apollo 13, and of course he had a hand in. Wow, I'm losing everything right now. His narration on Arrested Development
Yes.
is just like we quote that show all the time, and we quote the Ron Howard parts too. So
There
um,
was Ron Howard was on Conan O'Brien's podcast recently. Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend, talking about how he came to be the narrator on Arrested Development. If you haven't heard that, I definitely recommend going to listen
I will have to check that
to
out.
that. It's pretty fun story. Number 4, this is a great one. What is your favorite Star Wars reference or Easter egg in other media? And the example I've been listing is like in Back to the Future, where Michael J. Fox's character Marty McFly says, "My name is Darth Vader. I come from the planet Vulcan." So anything
Right?
like that, it's in another movie or show or book or something, and it's a Star Wars reference. What do you think?
Well, Big Bang Theory covers a lot of that. And there's one episode where Sheldon runs into James Earl Jones. And
Okay.
you think James Earl Jones is going to be like standoffish, but he's like, let me guess, you love Star Wars. I love Star Wars too. And so they talk Star Wars and they go around town together and even go ding dong ditch at Carrie Fisher's house. So that's and she appears in the show. So that's probably one of my current favorites.
I haven't
Not
seen that one. But it reminds me of, remember that show Just Shoot Me
yes.
with David Spade? There was an episode with Mark Hamill, and David Spade's character was like super excited to meet Mark Hamill, and then Mark Hamill just like wouldn't leave. And by the end of the episode, he was like super sick of him. It sounds like a similar idea. I don't know. Did you have something else to say? I kind of cut you off.
No. That's it.
Okay. Number 5, the 5th and final of the 5 Star Wars questions. Level 4. What is your favorite Lucasfilm project outside of the Star Wars franchise?
I'm gonna say that I really love Indiana Jones in terms
Popular
of
choice.
Lucasfilm and specifically Last Crusade.
Okay.
That's the movie I think of all the time. I had the most fun with that one. It was a great way to end the series at that point, and then we have since had more movies. But
Yeah. That tends to happen when things make a lot of money. I was
right?
thinking about Toy Story recently. The Toy Story trilogy is so perfect to me, and then they had to do more.
Yeah,
But it tends to go that way. You can't leave the cash cow untapped, I
exactly.
guess. Speaking of Lucasfilm, I'm going to transition now into an interview that I did this week with a producer of the George Lucas Talk Show. Now, George Lucas Talk Show is a comedy show that came out of UCB Theater, Upright Citizens Brigade Theater in New York. And it has become also a live stream show on YouTube. And they've done tours. They've done shows all over the country. And I think in parts of Europe. Very popular in the underground comedy scene and among Star Wars fans, I would imagine. I knew about this show. I just wasn't I hadn't really immersed myself into it, but then we got a screener for the documentary. There's a new documentary called I'm George Lucas, a Connor Ratliff story. And I watched and reviewed that for Laughing Place. And then I had the opportunity to interview this guy. His name is Patrick Kottner, and he is the producer of the George Lucas talk show. And then he's also the co-producer and co-star of the documentary I'm George Lucas, a Connor Ratliff story. Now, if you're watching this podcast live on the Laughing Place YouTube channel, you're not going to hear this, but come back and listen to the audio version when it goes up, I think tomorrow morning, wherever you get your podcast. And then you can listen to this roughly half an hour interview that I did with Patrick Kottner from the George Lucas talk show. Here we go. And that was my interview with Patrick Kottner from the George Lucas talk show, and he's co-producer of the new documentary, I'm George Lucas, a Connor Ratliff story, which is available right now to rent or purchase. You should just go to imgeorgelucas.com and you can buy or rent that and enjoy it. I hope you do. It certainly made me want to watch and enjoy more of the George Lucas talk show. Are you aware of this show at all, Bekah?
Only because you reviewed it.
Okay. Well,
and I have not read your review yet.
All right. Well, I recommend going and checking out both the documentary and the show itself. Let's get into some Star Wars headlines for this week. I actually wanted to add a couple things, which I forgot, to our list because 2 items broke this morning I wanted to talk about. First is Indiana Jones related, and I was super excited about this, and you'll be happy to mention this on your show, Barely Necessities, I'm sure. It's a 5 soundtrack box set of all the Indiana Jones soundtracks, the John Williams orchestral scores, in a box set, and it's going to be available for pre-order starting next Monday, June 24th from Disney Music Emporium. It's on vinyl, by the way. I forgot to mention that part. This has already been released on CD a bunch of times before, but this is a 5 soundtrack and 10 discs, because each soundtrack has 2 discs, a vinyl box set of all these scores. Obviously I love Star Wars music. I also love John Williams scores from the Indiana Jones music, and I'm really hoping that they sell this box set at D23. Usually Disney Music Emporium has a booth set up there, and you can pick up all your Disney published vinyl records there. Are you at all interested in this, Bekah, the Indiana Jones scores?
I mean, I like John Williams a lot. Yeah. Like that kind of the soundtrack or the composer of my childhood memories, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I don't know that we will be getting this, but I'm very intrigued by it.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I own these on CD. I have the original 3 movies soundtracks on CD, but I love collecting vinyl records now, like I did when I was very, very young. And the fact that came back after so much time, I don't know, I get a kick out of it. It's a fun hobby, and I'm looking forward to picking up this box set. Again, I hope it's available at the Disney Music Emporium booth at D23, but you can pre-order it next week on DisneyMusicEmporium.com, their official website. Let's get into comic book news, though. This morning, it came out from Marvel Comics that the 2 main Star Wars comic books, the ongoing titles, which are called Star Wars, just plain Star Wars, and Star Wars Darth Vader, are coming to an end. And this is the current volume of both of those comics that take place between the events of The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. I've been predicting this on the show for a few months now. If you go back and listen to some recent episodes, I've been saying I think they're approaching the end of these runs because there's only so much that could have happened between those 2 movies. And I think 50, they're both going to end with number 50 in September. So it's coming up on a nice round number for them to wrap up both of these series. The other ones that were taking place at the same time were Dr. Aphra and Bounty Hunters. Those have already ended with issue 40 and 42, respectively, earlier this year. So it makes sense that these are coming to an end. And Marvel Comics has promised that the next run of Star Wars ongoing titles will explore a different era in the Star Wars timeline, but they didn't say what that era might be. I really hope that they do after Return of the Jedi, kind of
Mhm.
between the end of Return of the Jedi and the beginning of The Mandalorian, which I think is like 6 years roughly they would have to play around with in the in-universe time. But I don't know. I have a feeling they might go back and do something in the prequel era because the prequels are all everybody's been talking about lately with like the 25th anniversary of the Phantom Menace. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on this one, Becca?
I mean, I have not kept up with the comics, but I think you make a good point with covering that span of time that
Yeah.
between Return of the Jedi and Mandalorian. I don't think there's has there been a lot in that canon that has covered that time period?
There's a trilogy of novels called Aftermath that
Okay.
took place after Return of the Jedi, and that has a bit of that in there. And then there was a comic book miniseries that came out around, I want to say around The Force Awakens, and that was called Shattered Empire, and that was also like
Okay.
right after Return of the Jedi. Other than that, there hasn't been a lot of stuff. So I think there is a lot of untapped potential there for the main characters because the Star Wars comic, the one that's just called Star Wars, is about the main Star Wars characters like Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, and Han Solo. This is their like continuing adventures. And Lando Calrissian was featured when Han Solo was frozen in carbonite. Lando kind of got in as the replacement there. But I would love to see more gaps filled in about their
Yeah.
story during that period. So hopefully we'll get more news about that. I have a feeling, with San Diego Comic-Con coming up in about a month, that might be where we learn more about what's going to happen with that. Speaking of comic books, this week's only Star Wars comic to be released. Sometimes there's 2 or 3 or 4 or more. This week just had one, and it's called Star Wars Jango Fett, issue number 4. It's the 4th and final issue of this mini series from Marvel Comics. I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good. It has some good connections to the beginning because it takes place right before the Phantom Menace, and it has some good ties to the prequel trilogy, kind of informing some of the story plot points from the prequels. I recommend checking that out, or maybe you wait till the whole miniseries is collected in like one of those trade paperbacks, and you could pick that up. That was written by Ethan Sachs. Pretty good stuff. Getting into the merchandise news, pretty much the rest of this news is all merch. So I think you'll have something to say about this, Becca. Sideshow Collectibles has revealed the new Anakin Skywalker Hot Toys figure. Did you get to look at this? I know
I
Rebecca
did.
Mosley, yeah, the other Rebecca was impressed by this Anakin toy. But what did you think?
Oh, yeah, I mean, it looks exactly like Hayden Christensen.
Yeah,
It's crazy how detailed the Hot Toys, sculpts are, and not just the Star Wars ones, but, like, Marvel and everything else that I've seen them do. They're so realistic, they're so detailed, it's incredible, and they carry that price to go with it.
yes. Oh man, there's just so much good merchandise coming out these days, and a lot of it is very like almost all of it is very expensive.
I know.
So between the price and the space that it takes up, it's just getting to the point where I just can't. I just don't have room for it either in my wallet or in my apartment anymore. But yeah, this sideshow Hot Toys, Anakin Skywalker, it does look really cool. And Rebecca Mosley was showing us, found this image of like you can adjust his eyeballs to make him
That's
look like he's looking in different directions.
Yeah, that's something I think they've just started doing. There was a release a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago. I think one with Loki, and that had the movable eyeballs as well. The whatever technology word
Yeah.
they use for it, but yeah, you can like adjust the like kind of adjust the expression by moving the eyes.
That's pretty incredible. I haven't seen that particular feature in a toy before, so they're really going above and beyond with that stuff. And I wanted to ask you about this next item, which is the Her Universe, a new collection of Star Wars apparel. Obviously, Her Universe has been doing officially licensed Star Wars stuff
Mhm.
for a very long time. But what is this new Star Wars collection from that company?
So I think this was actually available on Her Universe first, but we've seen it at Disney Store. It's brand new to Disney
Okay.
Store, and it's this kind of like a vintage type sweater blouse with a very nice collar, and it has the R2D2 and Rebel like insignia all through it, like all across the top. So just this nice little band of pattern there. And then you can pair that with, or do it or just get it separately. They have a vintage style skirt that has AT-AT walkers or AT-ATs. How do we say it?
Yeah. I think either is accepted in my book.
Yeah, it's the large walkers on Hoth, and that's part of the pattern. And then there's some polka dots and stripes, so it's kind of giving that 50s, 60s era. It's a full skirt, it's a long skirt, and it comes with a belt, so you can have a little bit of fun, especially if you're doing a Disney bound or heading into Batu.
Right.
You can bring some fun to your wardrobe.
Let's say hi to a couple folks in the comments here real quick. We've got Austin Henry, the day of Star Wars. Every day is a day of Star Wars for me. And then Charlie Stuff says Gronk, which is kind of close to Gonk, which is a droid. And Gronk, wait, Gronk is a Disney character, right? Is he Emperor's New Groove? Is that what that guy's name is?
Kronk.
Kronk. Okay.
But yeah, like all in the same realm.
Up next, I did a couple video unboxings of products that were sent to me. I talked about this last week on the show. I got a big box of Star Wars products from our friends at Disney Consumer Products, and it was for Father's Day, and the box said, "I am your Father's Day." It had a little Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader illustration on it. But I unboxed that big box, but there were other things that I wanted to do in separate videos. So I did one entirely about the Fisher-Price Imaginext Darth Vader bot, which is a giant robot toy. It's pretty cool. It lights up, it makes noises, it shoots discs out of its chest, it shoots a ball out of its hand, and it's got a lightsaber. It can make lightsaber noises. It's pretty neat for young kids. And then I also did a video unboxing and build and review for the Lego Luke Skywalker X-Wing mech set. I did the Darth Vader version back in March because they sent me that for Imperial March. So now I've got both the Vader mech and the Luke Skywalker mech. These are not items that you would see in the official canon, but maybe in those like Lego animated.
Mm-hmm.
Did you lose me there for a second?
I lost you, but
okay.
I hope we're good.
little minifigures, and they're sitting in these mech suits that look like, one looks like Darth Vader and one looks like Luke's X-Wing. They're very fun. I like Lego, I like Star Wars, and I always recommend that kind of stuff. Did you get to look at any of this stuff, Bekah?
I've seen the pictures that you have, and I believe that they had teased the mech robot before. The mech was a different one. The Imaginext Darth Vader robot. And doesn't he like shoot stuff out of his like torso?
Yeah, he has these little discs, these little neon discs with the Imperial insignia on them, and he has a red ball that he shoots out of his hand.
That's right. You said
does a lot of cool stuff. Yeah, but you can check out those video unboxings on the Laughing Place YouTube channel, and I've got reviews up on laughingplace.com as well. Let's see. The last item here in Star Wars headlines is a good segue to talk about the Acolyte, because for the first time we have Acolyte merchandise now available on the Disney Store website. And I think it's just apparel right now. It's just shirts, right, Bekah?
Yes.
And they're, go ahead.
Yeah. No, they're exclusive to the Disney Plus subscribers. It's part of their early access program.
Oh, okay, cool. And I've seen the designs of the shirts there, and I think they're both pretty good, the two of them that I saw. And I'm really hoping that they pop up at Disney parks, because if I see this at Disneyland, I'll probably get it. I'm with the merchandise, I'm like a instant gratification only kind of. I don't like to have to order something and wait for it to show up. I want to buy it and have it immediately. So hopefully we'll see these at the parks. And then lastly, in Star Wars headlines for this week, and related to the Acolyte, we have a new song called "The Power of Two," which is an original song that was written for the end credits of the Acolyte episode 3 and performed by Victoria Monet. You heard it if you watched the episode, but you can stream it now, I think, wherever you stream your music. Did you get a chance to listen to that at all?
I listened to it once, and
Yeah.
I mean, I liked it. I don't really have other notes.
Okay. Yeah. Again, if you like the song in the show, you can go and listen to it. But that's a great segue again to talk about our main topic for this week, which is the Acolyte, Star Wars The Acolyte, the live action series on Disney Plus from Lucasfilm. And we got episode 4 entitled Just Day, D-A-Y. The very simple title this week. I have a feeling I'm going to predict right now the next episode, episode 5, will be named Night. I don't know what the chances of that are. But before we talk about this episode, Day, let's find out Bekah, what were your expectations going into this series? And what did you think of the previous 3 episodes?
Yeah, I liked the log line. So I thought the log line sounded very interesting. So I was intrigued from the get-go when they first announced that they were doing this and that it was going to take place kind of in that High Republic era. In terms of expectations, I really didn't know what to expect. What's most shocking to me now is the backlash, maybe not even backlash, but like the Prelash coming for the show. And I'm like, I don't understand this. People saying that it's like this pile of hot garbage, and I'm like, it's not. And no, but in terms of what we've seen already, I really liked the first 3 episodes. I wouldn't say on the edge of my seat, but I've wanted as each one ends, I've been ready for the next portion. I'm like, give me more. I want more.
I think there's a certain group of, let's call them fans out there, I guess, who have decided to judge things before, they were ready to hate this before it even started. And there are a couple of influential Star Wars YouTubers out there who are extremely negative about the, current ownership of Lucasfilm and the direction that the company has been going in. And I think they have big audiences, and there are people who follow them and will regurgitate all of their opinions. But if you approach this, I think from an objective standpoint, with your own, with your mind open and your eyes open, and wanting to like it, I do think there's a lot to like about this show. I really don't get the extreme hatred. And I think people are welcome to feel whatever they want to feel,
of course,
about it. But I am bothered by the way people are opposed to this show, and flooding comments on the Star Wars the official Star Wars Instagram, review bombing the Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb or whatever. It all kind of bugs me a little bit, but I've tried to detach myself from it now, because I just think it's just this select group. They're usually like early 20s, I think, dudes who grew up in a certain era and swear by everything George Lucas did. George Lucas is the only person who can create Star Wars, apparently. I don't know. I have to get past it and just kind of enjoy the show without worrying about them, I guess. Really quickly, let's say hi to Lewis Barry,
Lewis.
And we'll get another comment from Kyle here. He says, I don't want to order something and wait for it. I want to wait and then get it right away when it is at Disneyland. Yes, that's accurate. I don't like the wait between purchasing something and having it in my hands. I know it's a contradiction, but you got it. You were exactly right. This new episode, number 4, called Day, was directed by Alex Garcia Lopez. He did some episodes of Cowboy Bebop, I think the live action version. He did The Witcher on Netflix. He did The Punisher, also on Netflix. It was written by Claire Keichel, who wrote an episode or 2 of the HBO Watchmen series and a show called The OA, which I've heard of. And then Kor Adama is Kor Adana, Adana, is the other writer who is doing the upcoming Dune Prophecy series for HBO. And then Mr. Robot as a show that I've heard great things about. I never watched it. The director of photography was Chris Teague from Russian Doll, which makes sense because that was Leslie Headland's previous show. And then you had the editor was Mika Leskinen, who has done previous episodes of Acolyte and also did the Willow series that you can't watch anymore. Okay. What was your initial reaction to this episode 4 Day, Bekah?
I mean, I think this is probably my least favorite of the 4.
It was
and
also my least favorite. Yeah.
It felt short.
It's short, yeah.
Like, not that the others felt long, but I'm like, wait, we're done already? So yeah, my initial reaction was like, it's over?
Right. It felt kind of slight to me. It was like the whole episode was them getting to a place, and once they got there, it ended.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
It does have a very exciting cliffhanger. And I think, like, when I was looking at all the reactions, all the positive reactions, most people were reacting to that ending, which I think makes sense because you're like, oh, I got to see what happens next. Anything else, any favorite moments other than that ending that we'll talk about in a bit that stuck out to you?
Oh, that's a great question. Favorite moments? I'm enjoying the friendship between Osha and is it Jackie?
Yeah.
I'm enjoying their friendship and their conversations.
Well, that's another great segue for me to kind of skip ahead to one of my other bullet points here, because I was wondering, it seemed to me a little bit like they might have been flirting, but I didn't know if I was supposed to think that or not. Did you pick up on that at all?
I feel the same way, that I don't know, because it could absolutely go in either direction.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely think there's an attraction between the two of them, but whether it's just like a platonic attraction or like an actual romantic attraction, I don't know. But I think they're both like curious about the experiences that the other had, because they both have like somewhat similar upbringings with Jedi training, but then I feel like they're both vastly different, and I think that's very intriguing for both of them.
Yeah, and they're both Padawans of Master Soul.
Yes.
Right. So they have that in common. I think, yeah, like you said, they're both curious about each other. They have kind of formed this unlikely friendship, but I did just pick up on these little couple moments where Osha was like, oh, are you gonna miss me or whatever?
Right.
Like, this seems very odd if you're not like trying to flirt with somebody. Kyle also took it as flirty, so I guess we will find out more in future episodes what the case is, what's going on between those two. Yeah, a lot of walking and talking in this episode. It's a very walking through the woods, walking around the Jedi Temple before that at the beginning. A lot of moments between May and Kymir, and a lot of moments between all the Jedi as they're walking toward the place where Kelnaka, the Wookiee Jedi, has holed up in this old like derelict ship. Let's go through the cast here of this episode. We've got Amandla Stenberg is back as both May and Osha, the twin sisters. Then Lee Jung-jae, of course, as Master Soul. What is Master Soul up to this episode? He's really just, again, he's just walking. Right. But there is that moment. Okay, here's an interesting thing about Master Soul. He has that moment where he says to Osha, oh, when we get back to the ship after we're done with this adventure, I'm going to tell you what really happened about that night on your home planet. I don't know. How did you interpret that moment?
I don't know. I feel like I don't know. He's got there's a lot that I think he's been not just keeping secret, but I think he has mixed feelings about a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And I think he wants to share these thoughts with others. And yeah, even if it's not the best option for him, I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot that we haven't learned quite yet. I predicted just a minute ago that next episode is going to be called Night, and I think we're going to see. I haven't seen anything past this point, by the way. So these are all my predictions here without any further knowledge. I think we're going to see the second part of that fight in the following episode, and then the next episode after that is going to be the other flashback, and it's going to the back half of this season is going to be like a mirror to what we saw in the first half. The episodes are going to line up. We'll get that flashback as the third to last episode, and then those last two will wrap up the story in the present day. Those are my predictions as to what will come later on. Daphne Keene, of course, plays Jackie Lon. Manny Jacinto is back as Chimere. And yeah, this is a good place, I think, to talk about what Chimere. What do you think's going on with this guy? I think everybody is kind of predicting that he is the one behind the mask. You know, I think he's suspect number one on my list anyway. But the question is, like, is that a misdirection on the show's part? Do they want us to think that? And is it somebody else? What are your thoughts?
So I think we'll probably touch on some of this in a little bit later in the podcast. I was listening to the first and second Who's the Boss podcast covering the Acolyte. And so your guest in the first one was talking about Chimere being kind of the trickster. And I was like, oh yeah, that makes so much sense. And I would be absolutely fine if that's the case. I think it makes sense that he's there on is it Kofar? He's on the planet with them. I think that I like that as the reveal. I mean, yeah, it could also be a misdirect, but I'm gonna say that's where I think they're going.
I was pretty sure after episode 2, that was when I first predicted this. When I first saw episode 2, it's like, oh, it's just him. He's the guy in the Sith costume or whatever. But then after episode 4, I was like, oh, it's too obvious now. I think they want us to think this too much. So I will still predict that it will be him, but I will be happier if it's not him, because that'll feel more clever to me, I think. But we'll see. I guess we'll find out soon about that. I forgot to mention, Charlie Barnett is Yord Fandar. He didn't have a lot to do in this episode. And then Rebecca Henderson, she's got some weird stuff going on too, as Vernestra Rowe. She doesn't want to tell the Jedi Council about what's happening here. She's like, oh, we don't want our political enemies, whoever she's talking about, finding out about this potential, threat to the Jedi Order. I don't know. What was your read on that scene?
Well, isn't that how all of the problems start?
Right. Yeah. Everybody has to keep secrets around here. This seems like it's really building toward the fall of the Jedi 100 years later or whatever. And then Jonas Suotamo is back as Kelnaka. Did you think that? So we're really getting into heavy spoilers here. You haven't watched the episode, but did you think going in that Kelnaka would not survive to see the end of this episode?
No, I did not think that. If he didn't, I thought we would see it. I thought we would see a confrontation, not just this happened.
Yeah.
So, which maybe, like you're saying, if they're going to mirror each other, we might absolutely get that part of the story.
Yeah, that might very well happen. So, Kelnaka dies off screen, and Osha, who has suddenly decided to kind of change sides and turn herself into the Jedi and report this dark side Force user to the Jedi, she discovers Kelnaka's body dead from lightsaber wounds in his hut. The assumption, of course, is that this dark side master guy, and the fan name for him is Darth Teeth. I guess because he has this toothy smile on his. I have also heard Kylo. What was it? I don't remember the other name.
Kylo Venom. No,
something like this. Kylo Grin or something. No, it was more clever than that. I don't remember, but. Yeah, very, very suspicious. Very, a lot of mysteries still happening here that we don't know the answers to, as to what exactly went down. But it does end with that big cliffhanger of the Jedi rushing the dark side Force user master, and then they all get pushed back by the Force, and that's just the end of the episode right there. Big cliffhanger. I want to ask you, kind of rewinding time to the beginning of this episode, one of the first things we see as we kind of see Kelnaka, the Wookiee, going about his day, is we see that he's decorated his walls with these symbols that we've seen before, very reminiscent of what we've seen before in this series. What was your, because the camera kind of dwells on these symbols on his walls. What was your read of that?
I felt like they're the symbols of the witches, right?
Yeah.
Didn't we see that on
Yes.
the mother's face, and then on May's face after the ascension ceremony? I don't know quite how to read this. I could almost see it being like an obsessive thing where he's just trying to get to the bottom of it, like the Charlie Day with all of the strings. What connects here? What connects that meme? But I also wonder if I don't know enough of the Star Wars lore or history, but I think it would be interesting if he actually did have some ties to magic. If Kelnaka himself had ties to those forces.
Yeah, that would be interesting. And it certainly seems like Kelnaka and the previous guy who got killed, Master Torben, they have taken those events hardest of the 4 Jedi who were there, because we know that Master Soul is still teaching at the Jedi Temple, and we know that Carrie-Anne Moss, Master Indara, was still an active Jedi. She was stationed on that other planet. Master Torben had taken the Barash vow, basically like meditating and not talking to any other Jedi for however long. And then we know that Kelnaka has gone off on another self-exile into the woods of this planet. So I think as we do learn more about what happened on that night, I am curious what each Jedi's role in those events specifically was,
Yeah, and I actually wanted to ask you about Torben. He drinks that poison willingly, right? Like there was nothing about that felt coerced. And with Klanaka, it doesn't look like he put up a struggle. So I'm like, is this an atonement almost?
Yeah.
Like this is what this is what I deserve, or this is the way maybe to, I don't know, balance things or to set things right, is to I pay for my choice with my life. I don't know.
It certainly seems that way to me, and I think those are the questions that they want us to be asking. We did get a comment answering the question I was asking earlier. The other nickname for this dark side character is Smilo Ren.
Okay.
Thank you to Sky High in the comments for pointing that out. So it's Darth Teeth and Smilo Ren. Very funny. And then Low Down says hello in the comments as well. So that's the Kelnaka, the symbols. Yeah, very curious to see what that's all about. We talked about Osha and Jeki. Okay, one of the other questions I have that I want to talk about is we get a cameo appearance by one of the characters who is on the Jedi Council in the Phantom Menace, episode 1. And his name is Jedi Master Ki-Adi-Mundi. He's kind of like a conehead guy.
Yes.
And the interesting thing about this is that he is the character who says that the Sith have been extinct for 1,000 years in the Phantom Menace, which I think, this is a very intentional choice to put him in the show by the writers and showrunner and creator. And we know that the Jedi do encounter this villain on this planet. We don't know how many of them survive or get back to tell their story just yet, but I don't know why do you think Ki-Adi-Mundi is here? What do you think is the intent of the creators in putting him in this episode?
I mean, well, I'm just being silly. I was just saying, like, it means he's old because we know that we've seen him in Phantom Menace. It means, we're gonna get that Jedi Council that we're so desperate to see. I don't know, Mike.
Well, people are upset that it was established in the Legends continuity, not even in any of the stories, but in, I think, Star Wars Insider magazine or something, that Ki-Adi-Mundi had been born like 93 years No, this is 93 years before the Phantom Menace, but he had been born in like 70 years before the Phantom Menace or something like that. So it didn't quite line up with that. But anybody who has been paying attention knows that the legend stuff has been kind of pushed aside. That's not canon anymore. So we didn't know how old Ki-Adi-Mundi is in the current canon. So there's nothing contradicted yet in his appearance here, except for this idea that he may find out about this character who may or may not be a Sith. But I think, again, it is an intentional choice to put him here, and we will be getting more probably about the answers to those questions. My other little thing that I noticed is there is a Jedi of the Keldor species also spotted, and he's on the ship going to the planet, what is it, Kofar, where they end up, where Kilnaka is stationed. And to me, it looked like Plo Koon, who's another member of the Jedi Council in the Phantom Menace. I don't know for sure, but that would be interesting as well. And it would also mean that at least one of these Jedi do make it out alive to tell the story if he survives this fight with that dark Force user with the red lightsaber on Kofar. Did you have any other thoughts about those two characters maybe popping up? Or
well, I mean, as I was reading the show notes, I was like, oh, I hope this means we get Yoda. And then listening to the podcast, of course, yes, everybody's expecting Yoda to make an appearance. I think it's going to make the way we view Phantom Menace, or the way we view Phantom Menace is going to be different. And I think that's fantastic that we can like expand on stuff by telling what had happened in the past. So yes, I mean, I guess yes.
And people will call this stuff a retcon, but I don't think it is a retcon. It's a recontextualization without contradicting anything that has come before. And I am very curious, we're only halfway through the story. There's still a lot more left to go. So we don't know what the outcome is going to be, and we don't know exactly how the Phantom Menace will be recontextualized, or the prequels in general. Lowdown says it was confirmed that it was not Plo Koon, just the species, a female version of that species. So if that's the case, then disregard the Plo Koon stuff, and it was just Ki-Adi-Mundi. And it was confirmed that it was Ki-Adi-Mundi. I was curious if that was supposed to be just like another member of the Syrian species, which he's part of. But the credits the actor credits at the end do confirm that it was Ki-Adi-Mundi, this time played by, let's see, I have this here, Derek Arnold, who's a Lucasfilm guy, I think. And that's different from the actor who played him, whose name I'm blanking on in the prequels.
In the prequels. I mean, it was 25 years ago.
Right. Those were 25 years ago, and he's supposed to be 70 or 90 years younger here, or something like that. So I think it adds up that it would be a different actor. That makes sense to me. Okay. There is another scene I want to bring up with you where Osha interacts with these giant bugs in the woods.
I was fully anticipating the entire woods to like come to life with all of these bugs, and then it was going to be just this massive and I was surprised that that's not where it went. Like they built up all this tension.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we're done.
Yeah, and I've seen people say that too, but again, I'll point out they're still on that planet. So there may still be more with those bugs. What I thought was interesting was this conversation that she has with, I think it was with Jecki after that scene where she talks about how she disturbed the bugs and it ended up with one of the bugs having to die, which to me was kind of intentionally supposed to parallel or be a metaphor for what happened with the witches in the previous episode. The Jedi show up, disturb the witches, and then a bunch of them die, at least from what we were told. And we know, I guess we don't know who is dead and who didn't die from that scene, but it certainly looked like all the witches die. We know that May and Osha survived, but I don't know. Did that stick out to you, that kind of conversation there after the bug scene?
I had not picked up on that until reading our show notes. But no, I agree with you. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I like that I like that. That's kind of that's how this story is unfolding. We're we're drawing back to, or going back to, Osha's past. The
last thing that the last kind of big bullet point I want to hit here is, I talked about earlier the fact that we both kind of think that Chimere is behind that mask of the big bad, the big villain in this show. But I did put together a list of 5 potential suspects, including Chimere. The others that I had on my list were either Darth Tenebrous, who was the master of Darth Plagueis, who was the master of Darth Sidious. So it could be either Tenebrous or Plagueis. These are, in direct succession of this line of Sith master and apprentice that could lead directly into the Phantom Menace. Or I saw people theorizing that it's actually Mother Anastasia, who was May and Osha's mother, one of the witches, the leader of the witches in the previous episode. I saw theories out there that it was Carrie-Anne Moss's character, Master Indara. I thought that was interesting because mostly I think that one holds water only because of the actor, really, because you've got such a big actor. You think maybe she has a bigger role in this than just showing up and getting killed. And then, she has popped up in the flashbacks here and there. So she was a potential suspect. And then my little theory was, let's see, Tassi Loa, who was the Padawan of the Yord Fandar character, and we only saw her in one scene in the beginning of the first episode, and then she has just disappeared, and we have not seen hide nor hair of her since then. So I don't know. In the rules of kind of murder mystery storytelling, detective stories, it has to be somebody that you're aware of already. So it seemed like, well, maybe she's secretly evil. I don't know. That one seems like a long shot, but if it's not Chimere, Bekah, who do you think is the most likely suspect after him?
I read your article and I thought it was fantastic. I like the mother. What is her name? Anastasia.
Anastasia,
Anastasia. I like that theory a lot. I think it's surprising enough. It's satisfying, and I kind of like that the mother would be secretly training her daughter, and who already has completed the ascension ceremony and getting revenge on these Jedi. Like I think that makes a lot of sense. That's the one that, while I would be happy if it's Chimere, that's the one that I would be like, okay, this is a good choice.
Yeah, and in the article I referenced that Office quote of Dwight saying it's never, it can't be the most likely suspect. It also can't be the least likely suspect. And Mother Anastasia just feels like the most medium suspect to me. So if it's, hopefully maybe that will turn out to be the case. Back in the comments here, we've got Mark Stevenson saying he can't wait for Star Wars Outlaws on PS5. Yes, I have pre-ordered this. I'm super excited for this game too. That's coming out, I think, at the end of August. And then he also said Skeleton Crew likely coming before the end of the year on Disney Plus. Very excited about that too. Low Down said it might come back to play when all lightsabers during the fight. Foreshadowing. I think this person might be talking about the bugs.
Maybe so. That makes sense.
I could see the bugs coming back for the fight as well. So agreed on that. And then how about Mother Coral, who is the other, May and Osha's other mother? Definitely also a suspect. So good point there. Anything that you did not care for in this episode, Bekah?
The bugs.
Yeah.
No, not really. It just felt short. I would have liked a little. I would have liked a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree.
What about you?
I usually don't complain about the length, but when you get to like half an hour, it feels like for a prestige show on Disney Plus, it should be at least a little bit longer than that. So, and there's so many credit, if you look at the time, it says 35 minutes, but 5 minutes of that is credits. So it feels even more misleading. Mark wants to know if we think there will be an Obi-Wan Kenobi season 2. I know Ewan McGregor has said he would like to do it or would be up for doing it, the question is, does Lucasfilm want to do it, and would Disney want to pay for it, basically? So I think if they found a good reason to do it, I don't think he could team up with little Princess Leia again. He would have to have a different adventure, right? So they would have to come up with a good story. I don't know. What about you, Bekah?
I would be okay with the second season, but if they didn't, I'm satisfied with what we did get from that. But I don't know, kind of feeling like no, they're not going to.
Yeah, maybe not. I mean, it did end on a good note with him reconnecting with Qui-Gon Jinn's force spirit. So
I think I teared up.
Maybe that's the end for Obi-Wan for now. Let's talk about first of all, anything else you want to say about this particular episode of The Acolyte before we move on?
No, I don't have any other comments about
I think my only little nitpicks were I was frustrated by not understanding whether they were flirting or not. Osha and Jecki. I was like, well, are they flirting? I don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to be thinking in those moments. And then I was also kind of similarly frustrated with the conversations between Chimere and May, because I did think they were leaning a little too hard into telling us that he is the villain. But if that turns out not to be the case, I will retract those statements. What do you think is coming up for The Acolyte? What are you hoping from or expecting from these last 4 episodes, the second half of the season for this show?
I'm hoping for more from May's perspective, from that we get to see her side of the story, how she got to where she is now.
Right.
Obviously, I want to see the sisters fighting each other. I think that could be interesting before either one agrees with the other. And I am kind of expecting there to be like a big showdown between Master Soul and the sisters, or one of them. I think, which makes sense if I think he's going to make it to the end of the series or the end of this season. But I don't know. I think there's going to be a death between one of either the sisters, and I don't quite know who I think is going to die, but I think either Osha's going to kill Soul or he's going to potentially kill her. I don't know.
Well, they're certainly not afraid to kill off characters in the show. That has been happening in almost every episode. Will they kill off Soul or one of the 2 twins? Good question. Remains to be seen. And Mark also wanted to know if we think there's going to be season 2 of Book of Boba Fett. I like Book of Boba Fett. I think actually Obi-Wan was probably my least favorite of the live action Star Wars stuff that's come on Disney Plus. And Boba Fett might have been my second least, but it definitely had its moments. It definitely had its episodes. And I like that part of the Star Wars galaxy, the like underground, the scum and villainy, the bounty hunters. And that's like where my interests lie. That's why I'm so excited for Outlaws, the video game, by the way. So I would like to see more of the Book of Boba Fett and see that part of the galaxy explored more, but it didn't get a great response generally from fans. And I don't know how it performed for Disney, like with the viewers and everything. I don't know. Did you like the Boba Fett show, Bekah?
I did. Like you, I think that was probably there on the lower end of the live action Star Wars for me, but I did enjoy it. I really liked what is his name? Mr. Morrison.
Timura Morrison, yeah.
Yes. And I like that. Wow, I'm losing everybody's names right now, but Fennec Shand.
Ming-Na Wen.
Yeah, I liked the chemistry between them in terms of, both being like these bounty hunter characters working with each other. I liked that a lot.
I think even if we don't get another season of Book of Boba Fett, I think we will almost definitely see more of Boba Fett, the character, as played by Temuera Morrison, and Fennec Shand as played by Ming-Na Wen in some of the Mandoverse stuff. Because, not only do we have Skeleton Crew, which is in the Mandoverse, but we have the Mandalorian movie, at least 2 actually, because Jon Favreau is directing a Mandalorian movie. And then there's a movie that Dave Filoni has been announced to direct that's going to like wrap up the Mandoverse stuff. So I guarantee you, I would put my credits on them showing up in at least one of those projects. And Mark also thinks Cad Bane is not dead, so it would be cool to see him again. I want to see. My vote would go for Timothy Oliphant's character, Cobb Vanth. I want him to come back, so maybe he should get a spinoff too. Okay, that I think. Do you have anything else to say about the Acolyte before we wrap up?
I'm enjoying this, and shame on people who are,
yeah,
not ready, not willing to give it a chance. This is so good.
And the other thing, I said this last week too, I'll say it again here. Even if you don't like it, which fine, you're free to not like whatever you want, but if you don't like it, just wait for the next one. There's going to be more along shortly, so it shouldn't bother you this much that there's a Star Wars you don't like. I've had plenty of Star Wars that I didn't like in my life.
Me
and
too.
I've gotten past it. I moved on to the next one, and often I have enjoyed those. Okay, let's get into the final segment here on Who's the Bossk. It's called First Steps into a Larger World. This is where we talk about the media that we've been consuming and or enjoying outside of Star Wars. My example this week is a movie I watched. It was on Peacock. It's called Drive Away Dolls. It's by Ethan Coen, who is one half of the Coen brothers, and they split up a couple years ago. Joel Coen went off and made a movie called The Tragedy of Macbeth, which I loved. It's an adaptation of the Shakespeare play, obviously. And then Ethan Coen, the other brother, has made this movie Drive Away Dolls. This one kind of fell flat for me. I was excited to watch it, and it didn't. I don't know. It wasn't as funny as I was hoping. And yeah, I don't know. The jokes just didn't land. It felt like stuff that would be in a Coen Brothers movie, but I think maybe you need Joel Coen there as well to really sell those jokes and to deliver on a visual level. Because the other thing that's interesting about this to me is getting to see kind of what their sensibilities are working apart from each other. And I really hope that they get back together and start making movies again as the Coen brothers, two of my favorite filmmakers of all time. But I don't know why. I don't know why they split up. Hopefully that doesn't last forever. How about you, Bekah? Have you been watching or reading or playing any games lately? What would you like to talk about?
I've been watching. We just started the House of the Dragon season 2, so catching back up with that Targaryen family storyline. Trying to remember who's who, and so I'm enjoying being back in that world. And then we went and saw Inside Out 2, as good Disney Pixar fans, and I enjoyed that so much. It was a good sequel.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
I'm glad you like that. Yeah, we are watching House of the Dragon. Also, we have not seen Inside Out 2 yet, but I think tonight my wife and I are going to rewatch Inside Out 1, which I haven't seen since the theater. I just kind of want to refresh myself before we see the new one. And then Mark wanted to know the leader of the Jedi and the Acolyte. Yes, Master Soul is played by Lee Jung-jae. He's the lead actor in Squid Game, which I'm also watching now on Netflix. I'm 2 episodes into that. I'm really into it.
I just haven't had time to.
Oh, it starts off. The first 2 episodes are great so far, and I hear it only gets better. So Kyle wants to know. Oh, Kyle said the trailer for Drive Away Dolls looked great. Yeah, it didn't live up to my expectations, sadly. Had its moments again, but not as good as some of the Coen Brothers stuff. That's
Do you have a favorite Coen Brothers film?
Yeah, Big Lebowski, amazing. Fargo, No Country for Old Men, pretty much their whole career. There's a couple misses in there, like Intolerable Cruelty is not great.
Yeah.
But love the Coen brothers. Hope they make more together. Kyle also said it's kind of a Paul and John situation. Very, very apt comparison. Better together, but did some okay stuff on their own too. And then Mark wants to know if we saw Willow, the series, which you cannot watch anymore on Disney Plus. We mentioned this earlier in the show because the editor on Acolyte also did Willow. Yeah, I watched. I thought it was pretty good, not great. And I think it's very, very sad that you can't even check it out if you want to anymore. You probably have to go and download it illegally somewhere. I don't know. What were your thoughts on that, Bekah?
Well, the Disney Plus took it away. I'm very disappointed by that. I have not seen the series.
See, you didn't even get a chance to watch
it. I didn't. No, it was like there and gone. It was gone so quickly. So yeah, I dislike that.
Yeah, I don't like that trend. We talked about this a couple weeks ago with this whole like tax write-off thing with the Halcyon Galactic Star Cruiser kind of suffered the same fate. Boy, it's a bummer. The entertainment industry, at least Inside Out 2 did well at the box office. So maybe things are coming back. I don't know. That's going to bring us to the end of this week's episode of Who's the Bossk. Big thank you to my guest, Bekah Burbank. Always wonderful to have you as a guest on the show. Where do you want to send people to find you if you would like them to find you?
Yeah, you can find me at Disney Merch Show on X and on Instagram, or anywhere on Laughing Place. Just, shout out Bekah, and that's where I'll be.
All right. So I also would like to plug my other podcast, which is the Pop Culture Explorers Club. We're still doing that. We had a little hiatus there for like a month, but we're back in it full steam ahead. So you can find that anywhere you get your podcast. It's called Pop Culture Explorers Club. Just type that in. The next episode of Who's the Bossk, we will be talking about the Acolyte episode 5. So right back here next week around the same time, you will be able to find us and participate in that discussion if you like. I'm on Instagram at Who's the Bossk Pod. And as always, please visit laughingplace.com for all your Disney news and opinions. My name is Mike Celestino. Thank you so much out there for watching. And thanks again to Bekah for being my guest. See you next time and see you real soon. And may the Force be with you. Bye.